Jean-Bedel Bokassa. The name still sends shivers down the spines of many in the Central African Republic. Born into a humble family in 1921, Bokassa's life was a dramatic journey from obscurity to infamy. He rose through the ranks of the French army, his ambition burning bright. He seized power in 1966, promising prosperity and stability. Bokassa's early rule held a deceptive promise. He invested in education and infrastructure, raising hopes for a brighter future. Yet, beneath the surface, a sinister transformation was brewing. Power, like a corrupting poison, began to warp his mind, pushing him toward a path of tyranny. His paranoia grew and he saw enemies everywhere. He created a personality cult demanding absolute loyalty and obedience. The man who had once promised progress was now on the verge of plunging his nation into an abyss of fear and oppression. December 4th, 1977. Bangui, the capital of the Central African Republic, was adorned with extravagant decorations, a stark contrast to the poverty plaguing the nation. Bokassa, intoxicated by power, decided to crown himself emperor. The ceremony, a grotesque spectacle of pomp and grandeur, was a blatant emulation of Napoleon Bonaparte's coronation. The cost of this lavish affair was astronomical, estimated at over $20 million. This extravagance was a slap in the face to his people, many of whom struggled to afford basic necessities. The coronation wasn't merely a display of wealth, it was a calculated act to solidify his absolute authority. Bokassa adorned himself in opulent regalia, a far cry from the simple life he had known in his youth. He sat upon a golden throne, a symbol of his self-proclaimed imperial grandeur. This event, etched in the annals of history as an act of supreme hubris, marked a turning point in his reign. Following the coronation, Bokassa's rule descended into outright brutality. He established a repressive regime, silencing any voice that dared to question his authority. His reign of terror was marked by arbitrary arrests, torture, and disappearances. Fear became a constant companion to the citizens of the Central African Republic. Bokassa's cruelty knew no bounds. He was known to personally participate in torture and executions, his methods chillingly brutal. He kept a pride of lions, using them to dispose of his enemies, their mangled remains, a grim testament to his barbarity. The economy, once showing signs of promise, crumbled under his mismanagement and corruption. The funds that should have been used for development were squandered on his lavish lifestyle or disappeared into secret accounts. The nation was bleeding, its people suffering under the weight of his tyranny. One of the most horrific chapters of Bokassa's reign was the massacre of schoolchildren. In 1979, students took to the streets, protesting against the mandatory purchase of expensive school uniforms from a company owned by Bokassa's family. His response was swift and brutal. Soldiers under Bokassa's direct orders opened fire on the unarmed students, their cries echoing through the streets of Bangui. Over 100 children were killed, their only crime daring to question the dictator. The world watched in horror as news of the massacre spread. This act of unspeakable cruelty shattered any remaining illusions about Bokassa's regime. International condemnation was swift and fierce, leading to his isolation on the world stage. The massacre of the schoolchildren became a symbol of his reign, a chilling reminder of the depths of his depravity. As Bokassa's atrocities mounted, so did the pressure for his removal. International condemnation grew, and internally opposition to his rule intensified. Finally, in 1979, while Bokassa was abroad, his regime was overthrown in a bloodless coup supported by France, the nation's former colonial ruler. Bokassa, stripped of his power and condemned by the world, fled into exile. He lived out his remaining years in disgrace, a shadow of his former terrifying self. He was tried in absentia for his crimes, including murder, embezzlement, and even cannibalism. His downfall was as swift and dramatic as his rise to power. The once seemingly invincible emperor was reduced to a fugitive, his name forever synonymous with tyranny and brutality. The Central African Republic, ravaged by his rule, was left to pick up the pieces and begin the arduous task of rebuilding. The reign of Jean-Bedel Bokassa stands as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the human capacity for evil. His story is not just a historical anecdote, it's a cautionary tale for the ages. It underscores the importance of vigilance, the need to hold leaders accountable. The echoes of his reign still resonate in the Central African Republic, a country scarred by his brutality. His legacy serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy, the ease with which it can be subverted. The lessons learned from his rule are as relevant today as they were decades ago. Never again, the world vowed, should such atrocities be allowed to occur. Bokassa's downfall reminds us that power must always be checked, that silence in the face of oppression is complicity. It's a call to action, a reminder that the fight for justice and human dignity is an ongoing struggle.